service in Washington. The U.S. astronaut, who lived a very private life after his historic moment until his death last month, was given a very public farewell. His former crewmates Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins were among those who came to pay their last respects. Well, let's go to Washington National Cathedral where the service took place. Our reporter Zoe Conway is there. Zoe, what were some of the tributes paid to a man who made history but who was a very private man?
That's right. It was an incredibly moving service. It began when the Armstrong family processed down the nave of the cathedral. They were led by a bagpiper because Neil Armstrong was incredibly proud of his Scottish roots. And what we heard again and again from friends and from colleagues of Neil Armstrong was what a humble and a modest man he was. And perhaps the best example of this was given through an anecdote about his time on Apollo 11. Apparently he looked out of the window of the spaceship and he held up his thumb, and his thumb blotted out planet Earth. And he said that at that moment he felt very, very small. So we heard about a man that was uncomfortable with his fame, but understood how important that small step was to America.
And what was it because of that historic moonwalk they decided to give him a very special kind of memorial? Barack Obama, of course, called him an American hero.
That's right, and it was incredibly fitting that it took place here at the National Cathedral, because there's a stained glass window that's dedicated to those Apollo 11 astronauts, and buried within it is a piece of moon rock. It's less than 3 inches long, and it's 3.6 billion years old. So we were reminded as we sat there of the wonder and the mystery, that this wasn't just a journey of scientific discovery, that there was so much wonder wrapped up in it. But we were also reminded of what this small step by Neil Armstrong meant to America. They played an excerpt of a speech given by President Jack Kennedy in 1962, and in that speech in Texas he issued America a challenge to reach the moon within 10 years. Well, of course they did it with 5 months to spare. And so perhaps that was the best example really of how the 20th century really was America's century.
And indeed, Neil Armstrong had interrupted his very private life to speak out at a hearing saying he didn't want the space mission to be curtailed. So I suppose this memorial also sends that message too about how much it matters.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting moment to be reflecting on all of that. In this presidential election campaign, there's been a lot of discussion about American exceptionalism, about fears of American decline. So it is significant that some of the last public comments made by Neil Armstrong were about the space program and his concerns about cutbacks to it and criticism of President Obama's decision to cut back the spacewalk program.
Zoe, we'll let you get back to the memorial on what seems to be a gloriously sunny day in Washington. Thank you for joining us.